I think that we just experienced the tail end of Mercury retrograde. I just, my phone died as I was in the middle of my inspired Mercury retrograde and life transformation rant. And of course, if your phone dies in the middle of you going live on Instagram, it does not save it. Just FYI, so you all know. Anyways, I'm going to be hopefully downloading this little brief talk and uploading it so people can watch at a future date. But as you know, just to kind of recap, if I didn't believe in Mercury retrograde affecting me in deep, vast ways in the past, I most surely do. As of this past year, I really, really see the effects of the cosmic arrangement and how that directly reflects into my own life and daily circumstance. But basically, you know, the correlation that I was drawing with this app gives me some false eyelashes. The correlation that I was drawing with Mercury retrograde was in respect to health. You know, for example, oftentimes if people have like an autoimmune issue, let's say chronic fatigue, or they have cancer, people will resist. You know, people will do everything in their power to get rid of. And I think that when you listen to the stories of deep transformation from people that have overcome, it's the surrender and it's the acceptance and it's the discontinuation of resistance to what's showing up in your life. And when the mind is like a deep, angry chatterbox of trying to push away what is there, it's only going to fight with a deeper volition to get its message across. And so the correlation at this point in time, you know, what I was using the example of was all of the different lessons, all of the different things that have kind of shown up for me during this star time, you know, that they call Mercury retrograde. And in the past, I, you know, maybe prided myself or would say, nah, you know, I'm not affected by these things. And I like how my guru says, you know, outwit the stars. So definitely we don't have to be held to anything. We have free will on this earth. You know, we are inspired by the law of attraction. It's one of the, you know, it's one of the laws of this planet. And it's one of the frequencies in the vibration, and law of attraction is all about magnetism, right? So what we put out, we get back. And that is one component. People will talk about that as karma, and it's been hella famous for, you know, the past 15 years as far as I've been consciously aware of this kind of language. But so yeah, that is one of the primary laws that is governed in this planet. It's the law of attraction, or karma as we so put it. What I love about that is that you do have the ability at any given time, at any moment in your life, to kind of interrupt a negative cycle and try and raise your vibration and put out, hello, some lovely souls on here. You know, so we can put stuff out and it's going to bounce back to us. What I dislike about the law of attraction is saying, well, you know, if you're suffering with this disease and you have this and, you know, you're in like almost an impossible environment and all that kind of stuff, that it's your karma and you know, you're just going to keep attracting more crap into your life. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, in my opinion, which means that although we are living this three-dimensional life and we're here on the sphere and we're having this human experience, it doesn't mean that we are confined to the laws of here alone. No, hell no. So Are you confined to the law of attraction? No, you're not. You can supersede that. And even if you have tons of crappy stuff going on in your life, it does not mean that you have to attribute stamps and energetic like ownership of like, I just am deserving all of this. The best thing that I can suggest to everyone, and the suggestion that I have to myself day in and day out, is to look for that deeper conversation that's showing up louder and louder in your life, because there's a message for you, and it is solely important. So important. And if your external environment and your internal environment, including your thoughts or your body, how it's responding to life, is echoing something that is out of alignment, there's a good reason, you know. There's a good conversation. There's a good reason. And so to circle back, because I'm going to be downloading this video and uploading it, and we just had like a fun Mercury retrograde. I was just on here for like 45 minutes pouring my heart out and just sharing. I'm doing a recap. And this is the fast recap. But I came on with the example of Mercury retrograde, saying goodbye to Mercury retrograde. And, you know, I was kind of like excited, it's done. But then I thought about everything I've accomplished in the past couple weeks while Mercury retrograde has been punching me in the face. And I'm like, holy cow, I have gotten so much accomplished. I have like dug out some of the scar tissue and nasty, scary things that have been like folded up 50 million times and tucked away in the creepy corner in the basement that nobody goes down to because it's just too scary to look. And that's where I've been. I've had no choice. I've been on this organized, detail-oriented paper trail to get to those deep, dark corners and start opening up that stuff and looking at it for what it is. And that's fucking powerful. That's amazing. It's actually amazing. And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, when I work with clients and when I work with people, and you know, you have a like for health, you know, there's an autoimmune thing or cancer, and people always resist it, try to get rid of it, try and kill it. You know, chemo, let's burn it, let's kill it, let's just kill it. You know, that's like your lesson showing up. And some of the most beautiful people that have healed, you know, that have really healed, will say it took surrendering. It took taking that tumor and saying, you know what, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to listen to you. Like, what are you saying in my body? What are you the red flag of? Like, what are you showing me? Because you're here for a reason. And so this Mercury retrograde, oh Lord, if I could just, you know, spill the beans on all the different things, but it doesn't matter. The bottom line is I ended up on this trail. And so my last house that flooded. Now I'm in a new house, and then it also leaked. So it's like, okay, that's kind of funny. Two situations within like 4 months that are very similar. Second one, not so bad, so maybe I've been listening a little, but I wasn't fully listening. So there's a lot more to that, but the bottom line is that there were situations where, you know, paperwork and birth certificates and all of our everything has been, it's gone. So I went to try and tackle in a more organized way how to upgrade my credit and stuff, because I kiboshed that in a really controlling bad relationship that I was in a couple years ago. And I could say it's not his fault, because I had the same magnetism to be polarized to be in that relationship, and I allowed controlling things to happen in that relationship. I allowed myself to be subject to certain things and to fall into like a really terrible mental health state and, you know, kibosh my business. And I could say that's my karma. And in terms of the law of attraction, I was echoing out like deep, you know, heart bleeding energy of insecurity and codependency. But sorry, the oven's beeping clearly. Oh, wait. There's a close-up. I'm trying to put my timer back on. Cooking my kids' stuff while I'm doing self-motivational stuff on the alternate. So I'm trying to get back to that financial little spiel. I could say the law of attraction stepped in, and I could say I've had really financially abundant and flowing states in my life where, I've manifested the pants out of things. I'm a really, and it's even in my charts for astrology, I'm a really good manifester. So I'm able to have, ideas and spring things to light, and I see, the energy and the power of my thoughts and how strong they are, and how that just pulls the cosmos into this stream. And you realize something really terrifying, you are a participant in this great mystery, and you do make dents. You are part of the show, and you do have a role. So the accountability factor comes in. But the bottom line is 2 years ago, I let my finances fall apart, and my credit and everything else. And it was too freaking scary to just see, working so hard for so many years of my adult life and getting to a place where I was in a good position and I had a good business and good credit, and, things were looking up. And my whole world just literally collapsed. And again, I always like to share very transparent facts, and to me, things aren't a matter of blame. Everything boils down to insecurity and levels of health and being unhealthy. But I was with an individual that I would say, really struggled with a variety of different mental health issues. This is my belief. Predominantly, we could say very narcissistic tendencies, very codependent tendencies. The bottom line is he didn't love himself. And the bottom line is I was a match for that because I didn't love myself either. And together we created this really ugly war of fear. And fear is messy, and fear is ugly, and fear will fuck you up in a lot of ways. And so my financial status definitely came into this rabbit hole. And so it was, I think half a year ago, I decided to open up, those wounds and say, let me look at this, and let me give you some attention, and let me try and heal this. And so I have worked really hard over the past, I guess, since last summer, really, really hard to try and improve my financial situation or improve my credit. There's been a lot of fear. There's been up and down, and manifesting and having months of a lot of financial abundance, and then tanking and losing all my savings and just crazy circumstances in my life. I've always been taken care of, so those high abundance months ended up taking care of when I had low points too, and I've been able to be okay. But it's just, I'm watching my credit like this. It's just this roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. And so I made the decision to contact somebody and see if they can just help me get together a better plan so that I could streamline what I'm doing and putting all this hard effort into something that might be a little more stable. And so I met with somebody, and that's when the Mercury retrograde fun really kicked in, because they're now we need this piece of ID, the birth certificate. I go to one of the government offices, and it turns out in Canada our government has not employed a new employee for a year. They've been in strike in terms of employing new people. So a wait for a birth certificate is 11 to 17 weeks or something like that. Now I just found out yesterday I can pay more money and expedite it. And so we live in the material realm, and it just seems like anything you need done, if you just pay more money, you can get it done faster. And that is kind of one of the vibrations of this planet, and that's the way things work. But when you're a sensitive soul and you're trying to look at other important factors of development in terms of your spiritual psyche and self-awareness and all of these things, we can be in resistance to the laws of this universe. And we can have negative associations with money, and we can have negative associations with the material plane. And then again, so resistance shows up. So I'm watching all of this, and it was like everything from my phone was full and I couldn't like unload anything, and then my laptop was full, but then it was like, now we want a password for this, and then my Apple ID, it like locked me out of, and I've been back and forth for weeks trying to get that sorted. And then apparently there was malware, so I can't actually hook up my phone to the same stuff that's uploaded on my Apple ID on my computer, and I couldn't unload extra stuff from my phone to actually upgrade the storage. So I wasn't getting text messages. I wasn't getting messages. A lot of wonky stuff was happening, and this kind of like rabbit hole thing with ID and proving who you are. And so it's fine. But the bottom line is that although Mercury retrograde may look like this kind of poison or cancer or terrible thing, it's actually been the conversation that I was avoiding in my life. Because the finances or the order or the detail or the ID or all of these little things, they're just part of the language of the way that this kind of 3D materialistic world can speak to me and try and show me. And even getting to those places to look at, my financial health. Financial health is huge. It's huge. Do not underestimate how powerfully huge it is. And as one of these spiritually inclined individuals that doesn't have, personally, and it's not to judge anybody that does, but I don't have that kind of taste where I'm like, I need Gucci and Prada and all of this stuff, to feel good and wholesome about life. I grew up in, upper middle class suburbia. I didn't struggle with lack. I didn't struggle with a poverty mind state when I was younger. My last rant that got deleted on here, I did talk about how at a young age, at like 17 and 18, I moved out. My traumas weren't with money. My traumas were of different emotional value, where the codependency bled from. And that was not feeling secure in my own skin and not having a type of structure that made me feel love was unconditional. So in terms of my financial structure, in the way that I thought about money and abundance, that was flowing. So when I was young, I moved out on my own, and there was no lack. I bartended, I waitressed, I made really good money. I was making honestly $600 to $1,000 a night in tips that I was taking home. And I worked a sales job during the day because I had so much anxiety. I had to keep myself busy every second, every waking second. And because I struggled so much with insomnia and sleep, I packed that time too. So I was really good at manifesting money. But that bled into all of those deep-seated insecurities anyways. It didn't matter. Because I always found myself in relationships where I was giving away everything that I had. That was my emotions, that was my time, that was my money. Now, a lot of codependent people get pegged as just the do-gooders and just people that, are giving their heart and soul. And yeah, that is the case in some scenarios. And there is that honesty and purity of wanting to give and help. And that's part of me. And many of us, I think it's really natural and just a beautiful part of the soul. It's inherent. But a lot of the time that giving comes out of a fear of the consequence of not going through with that comfortable, more graceful, easy aspect of behavior. And that's where we get locked in, it's where I got locked in. So I see that, and I see like the deeper virtue of the lesson of codependency and owning my voice, but also calling a spade on myself too, and saying like, it's more comfortable to say I'll do X, Y, and Z and know that all the people in my environment are going to be really chill, and that I'm going to have my peace and my quiet, for whatever period of time it is, a day, an hour, whatever I want, because that might be ruffled if I start challenging people more or saying no. This is just an example. So what I'm saying is codependency is not just selfless. It's also selfish. There's motivators behind all of that stuff too. And fear. Fear. If you're not doing it because you want to get something, so in my case, I want to get peace and harmony, and I don't want to have to argue so much or fight, or I don't think that I have enough energy to exude to, confront a situation. Because honestly, most of the time, especially if you're codependent and you're those habits, you're going to come up to like a giant ass wall that's in front of you that's like if you actually want to say what you want to say, you have to live your life differently. And so for a lot of us, that means jobs, career, like relationship, health, all these biggies in our life. Oftentimes one or all need to change if we're going to step into authenticity. And so the big fear with codependency, the big fear is that, we're not lovable as we are, as imperfect and, disheveled, or like, if people really knew that we didn't want to go do those 5,000 things for them, and that we really were like selfish people that just wanted to stay at home and relax and not have to do those things, we might be a bad person. So codependent people are terrified of the label of being a bad person. And so I too was terrified of being a bad person. Now I'm not terrified of being a bad person. I am just a regular person. I'm not, everybody has a good person and a bad person inside them. And what I've realized, the big thing that I've realized is we are in a 3-dimensional plane. We have an ego. So the ego serves us. It's a personality. In order for us to walk around in these bodies, we need a personality. We need a function. We need roles, right? So if you are committed to living a life on earth, you have a personality and you have a role to play. And you would not have an ego if there was no selfish aspect of self. So in order for you to play out your role here, you have to have an aspect of discrimination or judgment in order to follow through with your role. And in order for self-preservation and all of these other things, there are aspects that need to be nurtured in the self. There are selfish behaviors that in the long term end up cultivating less selfish acts. And sometimes, and oftentimes for codependence, that is saying no a lot more and being more honest with, no, I don't feel like doing that. Just like the other 10 people in the room didn't jump up and volunteer to do that because they don't want to. Now, it's not like it's not, a free pass to just not ever help anybody out or not do anything out of the goodness of your heart. But it's kind of like, I feel for us, 9 out of those 10 times that we say yes, we should be saying no. Because 9 out of 10 times you're not seeing a bunch of other people jump up in the room offering to do that. It's gonna go turn the oven off. Yeah, slight interruption, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, cool. So, Mercury retrograde, really challenging time. So and still, like, I'm in the heat of it. I'm not out of the challenge, but holy macro, I've accomplished so much because I've decided to confront, and I've decided to say, I'm gonna make fear my friend, and I'm gonna walk with it and through it. And I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to push it away. I'm not going to resist it. I'm not going to say it's not scary. Yep, a lot of it's scary because a lot of it, the way I walk predetermines, different opportunities in my future. But it is robbing me of my peace to allow that little, nook in the basement, that scary, box of stuff that needs to be opened and really dealt with and looked with on vast terrains. Because these messages are all soul messages. They're all things that have been coming up for a long time. And the lessons are hilarious. You just can't make it up. How do I just move out of a situation less than 5 months ago where my house flooded and I needed to get out, and the lease ending date was like in June, and I had, with my housemate, we had organized that we were going to move out to the West Coast in our own spaces, but we were not staying in Ontario anymore. We were not staying in Peterborough anymore. So the lease was ending at a certain date, and we had made, this pact that we were getting out, because my heart has been pulling me to the West Coast for 5 years, really for 13 years, consistently. But just over the last 5 years have I kind of toyed with the idea and made the effort to say, stamp in the universe, I'm going to make my way out there. And I've had weird dreams and stuff like that, which I trust very much, the timing, and I surrender that to the universe, and I wasn't in resistance to that. I listened. But at this point in time, we end up in another house, and the same thing happens. The basement leaks. Now this time we don't have a whole flood. Everything isn't ruined, but partially. So we just had new carpet that was put in this house 2 months ago. And the basement, it's stale and it's moldy smelling because all of that water came in and saturated and soaked the carpets, and they need to redo the foundation, and it affects your health. It just affects your health. And I feel like, and it's funny because our lease is up in June here too. And when I think about being out west, my body feels vibrant and healthy and energetic. I feel alive. I feel like I could take on the world. And when I think about right now trying to get into another place here, I feel scared. I'm not saying that it's not the choice that I'll make. I'm going to leave this one up in the universe's hands. I'm kind of throwing, that that saying of throw the spaghetti at the wall. In Europe they say, how do you know when the pasta is cooked? You throw the spaghetti at the wall and it sticks. So I'm throwing my spaghetti at the wall. I'm throwing it in the wall on the West Coast, and I'm throwing it here in Ontario. But it's almost like being pushed out. Because right now, for places to rent out here in Peterborough, there's a listing, a one page. It's got 10 listings. Half of those people are searching. A couple of those places, they're not 3-bedroom houses for rent or 3-bedroom places for rent. They're actually just single bedrooms in a basement that people are renting out. I literally have 2 options. And the 2 options that I have, the price points are the same as the West Coast, which is the main factor of keeping me away from there in the past. And the prices have inflated. The market has a false inflation right now because the prices of houses increased so much that a lot of people that are renting in this market see that because of this inflated cost of housing and people renting out for these much increased prices, where they were renting something out for $1,000 before, they're now renting it out for $2,000. Why? Because there's that margin, there's that room, and it's greed in the long run. Of course, there's some new homeowners that just do have higher mortgages, but a lot of the homeowners out here have had these houses for over 10 years, and it's just, it's a cash grab. It's an opportunity, and people are taking that. For me, My own personal story intervenes here when I say my heart, my dream, everything that I feel and flow with is in this other place. It's, 4,000 miles away from here. And the scariest factor for me of not going out there was the cost of rental. And now, the place that I live, a smaller town, 100,000 people, and the cost of rent has inflated almost like $1,000 over a 3 to 4 year period, and how much more it's going to cost. Like here now, a 3-bedroom is typically $1,900 plus utilities. So coming in and around $2,300 to $2,500 a month. Just 3 to 4 years ago, it was $1,000 less. You could rent a 3-bedroom house for $1,400 to $1,600 inclusive. And so now I'm looking at West Coast prices. I'm looking at metropolitan prices. It's the same in Toronto in the GTA. I can go rent a house in Toronto for the same as in Peterborough, which is vastly different. You have 7 million people versus 100,000 people. The inflation is totally crazy. So I just look at the universe and I'm like, what are you saying? Is the universe literally trying to push me to just surrender? It's like the big fear factor that was there before was the price from being hit with that anyways. So what's left? Like, what is left to be scared of? And there will always be things to scare you from your dreams. There will always be big, scary things to scare you away from knowing your limitless potential and the infinite light that's inside you that can help you do anything, literally anything. We have every example on this earth of people turning the most horrific stories into something really beautiful. And I am confident that I know very little, very little, very, very little. But I think that something that's confident inside me that feels like that deeper knowing is that we have been so conditioned in the West to pack every moment of our day and to have this worker mentality that we feel selfish and bad if we're not focused on working and contributing. That, the veil is there, the blindfold has been pulled over our eyes, and we are being taken away from the self, the soul. And that's why these things show up. That's why unhappiness, depression, anxiety, all the different echoes of what show up in the world when we don't love ourselves, when we don't take care of ourselves, because we're too busy feeding into that machine. When the whole message coming back to this earth for so many of us is to awake, is to remember, is to help each other awake and help each other remember. And that is the soul, that is that ache, that is that need, that is that deep knowing and that vast blooming space of breathing into oneself and knowing that there is peace by the river and the mountains and the ocean, and in just taking time to foster connection and relationship. That is the key to this world. That is what we need to work on. And if we're too busy always feeding into the rat race, which is very low self-esteem driven, and we don't take time to take care of ourselves, we don't go back to the basics, we're not able to be present. And life isn't about, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That's like a nice little dessert. We'll get to taste it. But it's about being here. It's about being connected and being present, because there is so much joy and there's so much freedom and there's so much peace in slowing down and changing the mental chatter and giving permission to be here and to be now and to have the deep diving thoughts and to take the time to meditate, to take the time to take a long ass bath with candles, because why don't you deserve that? You know, to take a walk by the water on your lunch break, to have the type of life that's not strangling you in every way, making you feel like shit because you want more than a work slave society, which is what we are conditioned to be part of in the West. We're basically identified with this system that says your personal needs for higher development and self-love don't fit in with what we want and expect and drill into you to keep you a good, upstanding citizen that's plugged into doing your due diligence. Well, I will fight every moment, and I will surrender every moment, and I will continue to work on that thought for the rest of my days on this planet and help other people to sit in that too, and to say, like, you do matter, your soul does matter, your soul needs do matter, and they will kick and scream and bite you if you don't listen. I love you guys. Thank you for listening, and much love.